Hello, welcome. So I felt like reading, and I was thinking that I was going to do the whole DMT, the spirit molecule book by Strassman, but I decided that this other book, the Corpus Hermeticum, there's so many books on my shelf that I haven't read yet, and I really want to. A lot of books that I've just like leafed through or used as references, and so today we're gonna go into this book called the Corpus Hermeticum, the Divine Pymander, and it's the original transcript by Hermes Trismegistus, 3rd century AD. This is a new edition from 2015, edited by Tarl Warwick. All right, so let's get into it. Introduction. Like other writings within the Hermetic tradition, the Corpus Hermeticum is written in the form of a dialogue, similar to the tradition of Plato's Republic or any of a number of similar and usually philosophical works. The effect which writing such as this has had upon the entirety of Western civilization is vast. The philosophy, taken up and used by quasi-secular scribe and magi alike, had a profound effect upon what by that time had become the political movement of Christianity, which eventually grew to encompass and inform even the most secular or mundane aspects of Western rulership and political dominion. Within this text are contained 17 shorter works, technically 18, for the profession of silence is sometimes held as its own separate work from the secret sermon. The material is exceedingly dense, and for ease of reading, the language has been modernized, and some archaic references, thee, thou, dost, and terms have been changed without changing the meaning of the text, which has already been translated multiple times into the English language, beginning in the era of the Renaissance into the period of Enlightenment. There are several basic concepts written about and spoken of by this rather mysterious figure of Hermes Trismegistus, the Emerald Tablet fame. The foremost and most important concept within the corpus is that of good and evil itself, where it is treated upon at length and variously, for within some of the dialogues present the premise of each section meanders slightly, digressing from topic to topic while remaining generally centered around the central principle of each section. Within this text, then, good is likened into that which does not change, and evil is that which changes. Ooh, weird. Interesting. Evil is passion, but the penultimate good lacks passion for anything except for good itself. Okay. This and much more is revealed by the powerful spirit called Pymander, or variously Pymander. I actually looked up how to spell it. Hey, Heidi, yes, welcome, my girl. Pymander, I looked it up, and it basically means like shepherd, like a herder of sheep, and they pronounced it Pymander. But in here it said P-O-E, Pymander, or variously Pymander. And when I hadn't looked it up, I thought it was Pymander. I love you, Heidi. Awesome. Okay. This and much more is revealed by the powerful spirit called Pymander, or variously Pymander, which instructs Trismegistus on this and other topics. The one singular and male-referenced deity spoken of here as the ultimate Lord, the God of the Christians as the maker, is both separate from the making and yet at the same time said to be bound to it. This work may be seen as espousing an early variant of modern physical principles, namely the retention of matter. At the time it was written, the concept that substance was routinely destroyed was generally accepted, and for several countries, that mode of thought would remain intact. Here, however, Trismegistus briefly mentions that there is no destruction and merely change, or, as he puts it, dissolution. This is an important concept and shows an intellectual capability centuries ahead of its time, measured in secular terms, and more than 1,000 years ahead of religious scholarship. Here, then, death is not seen as destruction, but merely the dissolution. We may call it entropy of the physical body, which is seen as liberating, even if the corruptibility itself, insofar as it is a form of change, is considered to be evil. As with most texts of its own nature, the corpus posits a relatively strict and sometimes difficult hierarchical system by which all of evidence is subject. Here, the world comes from God, and man comes from the world. Man comes rather indirectly from the deity, but through the power of the mind is able to comprehend an image or likeness of this being by noting the supposedly divine and natural systems, cycles, and synchronicity present in the world and the nature therein. The concept of motion and permanence is also of note within this work. To Trismegistus, if something has its own motion, its own willful volition, it must be immortal and have permanence and be of a higher level of divinity of sorts. This is opposed to the created things in existence, which are moved, and where they move at all independently, they do so as the result of passions, which he notes are also a form of corruption and evil, and which are subject to change and eventually death or dissolution, as he generally terms it. In what was likely seen as a vaguely heretical view at the time this work was made, Trismegistus insists that the singular God permeates all things, and that thus even mortal, wicked man is utterly part of this same deity, a deity which holds all power, makes all existence, and is never bereft of motion, or as we may say, the presence of divine will and the action thereof derived from it. The concept of an existence permeated by a deity rather than governed by a deeply anthropic, separated being living in the sky somewhere was revolutionary among Western discourse at the time, until the Age of Enlightenment. Most depictions of the cosmic realm place, the Christian Lord on a literal throne in the literal clouds, reigning over the world with a sort of detached interest, while remaining more or less separate from the same creation he himself once intermingled with in the Old Testament. Here, though, this deity is not only deeply, but innately and inescapably involved with the process of creation. This is, of course, here opposed to the process of generation, which is seen as a slightly purgative, and largely corrupt process by which mortal beings reproduce over time in accordance with change. Oddly, failing to reproduce is said here to be a sin worth a great deal of torment. Trismegistus states that the best way to honor this god is through silence, and through this, silent praise. We may regard this in numerous ways. Although it is possible, this is merely telling those reading the discourse to get out of God's way and allow his nature to work, because it is futile to resist it. Fate is, of course, regarded as real in Hermetic tradition, although it is a system of fate slightly more tempered than that of contemporary mainstream Christendom. In accordance with the going wisdom of the age, the physical form is here said to be crafted from a mixture of moisture and dryness, and of the four elements, as well as a sort of ethereal or divine essence, which is described in philosophical terms rather than physical ones. Certainly, the corpus, in its various ruminations on the nature of uncluttered brute beasts, as it remarks upon repeatedly, could have lent itself well to some of the colonial sentiments of the Renaissance. Indeed, applied to humanity, the Westerner might well have seen those tribes first encountered in the Americas or Africa or Java or elsewhere as merely being part of this same brutishness, which Trismegistus states operates singularly upon a principle roughly akin to instinct, rather than through the true volition of the true mind he speaks of. Hey, Moo, Desert Rose, welcome, welcome, you guys. Welcome, everyone. Thus, these lesser beings are under the domination of man, as he states on several occasions, while man remains, as a creation of the world and nature, subject to the same and afflicted with the same corruption that a beast is, namely, mortality on the physical level. The mind and soul of man, though, is immortal, and man thus has access to both planes, the mortal and immortal, which causes both suffering and the allowance that he should subdue his passions and desires despite his physical body and become enlightened and ascended. Right? So that was the introduction. Jenny, welcome. Awesome. So let's just jump right into it. The Corpus Hermeticum, Hermes Trismegistus, his first book. 1. O my son, write this first book, both for humanity's sake and for piety towards God. 2. For there can be no religion more true or just than to know the things that are, and to acknowledge thanks for all things to him that made them, which thing I shall not cease continually to do. 3. What then should a man do, O Father, to lead his life well, seeing there is nothing here true? 4. Be pious and religious, O my son, for he that does so is the best and highest philosopher, and without philosophy it is impossible ever to attain to the height and exactness of piety and religion. 5. But he that shall learn and study the things that are, and how they are ordered and governed, and by whom, and for what cause, or to what end, will acknowledge thanks to the workman, as to a good father, an excellent nurse, and a faithful steward. And he that gives thanks shall be pious or religious, and he that is religious shall know both where the truth is and what it is, and learning he will be yet more and more religious. 6. For never, O my son, shall or can that soul, which while is in the body, lightens and lifts up itself to know and comprehend that which is good and true, slide back to the contrary, for it is indefinitely enamored by this, and forgets all evils, and when it hath learned and known its father and progenitor, dang it, how do you say that? Progenitor, its father, it can no more apostatize or depart from that good. 7. And let this, O son, be the end of religion and piety, by which then one arrives. You will both live well and die blessedly, while your soul is not ignorant whither it must return and fly back again. 8. For this only, O son, is the way to truth, which our progenitors traveled in, and by which, making their journey, they at length attained to the good. It is a venerable way and plain, but hard and difficult for the soul to go, and that is in the body. 9. For first must it war against its own self, and after much strife and dissension, it must be overcome of the part, for the contention is of one against two, while it ascends, and they strive to hold and detain it. 10. But the victory of both is not like, for the one hastens to that which is good, but the other is a neighbor to the things that are evil, and that which is good desires to be set at liberty. But the things that are evil love bondage and slavery. 11. And if the two parts be overcome, they become quiet, and are content to accept of it as their ruler. But if the one be overcome of the two, it is by them led and carried to be punished by its being and continuance here. 12. This is, O son, the guide in the way that leads thither, for you must first forsake the body before your death and get the victory in this contention and difficult life. And when you have overcome, return. 13. But now, O my son, I will by heads run through the things that are. Understand what I say, and remember what you hear. 14. All things that are moved, only that which is not, is immovable. 15. Every body is able to be changed. Every space body is able to be changed. 16. Not every body is dissoluble. 17. Some bodies are able to be dissolved. 18. Every living being is not mortal. 19. Nor every living thing is immortal. 20. That which may be dissolved is also corruptible. 21. That which abides always is unchangeable. That which abides always is unchangeable. 22. That which is unchangeable is eternal. 23. That which is always made is always corrupted. 24. That which is made, but once is never corrupted, neither becomes any other thing. 25. Firstly, God. Secondly, the world. Thirdly, man. 26. The world for man, man for God. 27. Of the soul, that part which is sensible is mortal, but that part which is reasonable is immortal. 28. Every essence is immortal. 29. Every essence is unchangeable. 30. Everything that is paired. 31. None of the things that are paired stand still. 32. Not all things are moved by a soul, but everything that is moved by a soul. 33. Everything that suffers is sensible. Everything that is sensible suffers. 34. Everything that is sad rejoices also, and is a mortal living creature. 35. Not everything that has joy is also sad, but is an eternal living thing. 36. Not every body is sick. Every body that is sick is corruptible. 37. The mind is in God. 38. Reasoning or disputing or discoursing in man. 39. Reason is in the man. 40. The mind is absent of suffering. 41. No thing in a body is true. 42. All that is incorporeal is void of lying. 43. Everything that is made is corruptible. 44. Nothing good is upon earth. Nothing evil is in the heavens. 45. God is good, man is evil. 46. Good is voluntary or of its own accord. 47. Evil is involuntary or against its will. 48. The gods choose good things as good things. 49. Time is a divine thing. 50. Law is humane. 51. Malice is the nourishment of the world. 52. Time is the corruption of man. 53. Whatsoever is in heaven is unalterable. 54. All upon earth is alterable. 55. Nothing in heaven is enslaved. Nothing upon earth is free. 56. Nothing is unknown in heaven. Nothing is known upon earth. 57. The things upon earth communicate not with those in heaven. 58. All things in heaven are beyond guilt. All things upon earth are subject to reprehension. 59. That which is immortal is not mortal. That which is mortal is not immortal. 60. That which is sown is not always begotten, but that which is begotten always is sown. 61. Of a dissoluble body, there are two times, one for sowing to generation, one from generation to death. 62. Of an everlasting body, the time is only from the generation. 63. Corruptible bodies are increased and diminished. 64. Corruptible matter is altered into contraries, to wit, corruption and generation, but eternal matter goes only into itself and its kind. 65. The generation of man is corruption. The corruption of man is the beginning of generation. 66. That which reproduces or begets another is itself an offspring or begotten by another. Hey, welcome, Amy. Welcome, y'all. 67. Of things that are, some are in bodies, some are in their ideas. 68. Whatsoever things belong to operation or working are in a body. 69. That which is immortal partakes not of that which is mortal. 70. That which is mortal comes not into the body immortal, but that which is immortal comes into that which is mortal. 71. Operations or workings are not carried upward, but descend downwards. 72. Things upon earth do not advance those in heaven, but all things in heaven do profit and advantage all things upon earth. 73. Heaven is capable and a fit receptacle of everlasting bodies, the earth of corruptible bodies. 74. The earth is brutish, the heaven is reasonable or rational. 75. These things that are in heaven are subjected or placed under it, but the things on earth are placed upon it. 76. Heaven is the first element. 77. Providence is divine order. 78. Necessity is the minister or servant of providence. 79. Fortune is the carriage or effect of that which is without order, the idol of operation, a lying fantasy or opinion. 80. What is God? The immutable or unalterable good. 81. What is man? An unchangeable evil. 82. If you perfectly resemble these heads, you cannot forget these things, which in more words I have largely expounded unto you, for these are the contents or abridgment of them. 83. Avoid all conversations with the multitude or common people, for I would not have you subject to envy, much less to be ridiculous into the multitude. 84. For the like always takes to itself that which is like, but the unlike never agrees with the unlike. Such discourses as these have very few auditors, and peradventure very few will have, but they have something peculiar unto themselves. 85. They do rather sharpen, and what evil men to their maliciousness, therefore, it behooves to avoid the multitude, and take heed of them, as not understanding the virtue and power of the things that are said. 86. What do you mean, O Father? 87. This, O Son, the whole nature and composition of those living things called men is very prone to maliciousness, and is very familiar, and as it were nourished with it, and therefore is delighted with it. Now this wit, W-I-G-H-T, if it shall come to learn or know what the world was once made, and all things are done according to providence or necessity, destiny or fate, bearing rule over all, will he not be much worse than himself, despising the whole, because it was made? And if he may lay the cause of evil upon fate or destiny, he will never abstain from any evil work. 88. Therefore, we must look warily to such kind of people, that being in ignorance, they may be less evil for fear of that which is hidden and kept secret. Whew. That is a lot to digest. I don't know about reading this one live, right? It's like, I feel like I need to pause the whole time. Like, I don't. Dang, I'm not so sure about reading this live because I want to really understand this. Are you guys understanding this as I read it? Code! Hey, welcome! Awesome! Okay. You are understanding this. Okay. All right. Maybe I'll understand it more when I Hey! Oh! Did you get those cards in? That's so cool. Pymander. Should I continue this? Are you guys understanding this? What I'm saying to you? Should I continue this? Maybe I will understand it if I listen back to it. I mean, like, I am understanding a lot of this, but there's so many big ideas that they need more time for me to, like, I mean, I'm narrating, right? I'm not comprehending everything, and normally I comprehend a lot more than I just comprehended. Right? Shoot. Is there any way for me to change the title while I'm in here? I've been live for 28 minutes and I just got through the first chapter. Or should I stick it out? Yeah, I feel you, Amy. I mean, like, like. Well, I guess I'll just read until I decide not to. Son of a gun. We could read something that's more comprehensive, like that other book too. There's so many books. All right. Chapter 2. Let's get through chapter 2 and then we'll assess again. Maybe I'll just do another live. Oh gosh. Yeah. All right. 2. Pymander. 1. My thoughts being once seriously busied about things that are, and my understanding lifted up, all my bodily senses being exceedingly held back, as it is with them that are very tired, by reason either of fullness or of meat, or of exhaustion, I thought I saw one of an exceeding great stature, and of an infinite greatness, call me by my name, and say to me, what do you wish to see and hear? Or what would you understand to learn and know? 2. Then I said, who are you? I am, he said, Pymander, the mind of the great Lord, the most mighty and absolute emperor. I know what you wish, and I am always present with you. 3. Then I said, I would learn the things that are, and understand the nature of them, and know God. How? Said he. I answered that I would gladly hear. Then he said, Have me again in thy mind, and whatsoever you wish to learn, I will teach you. 4. When he had said these things, he was changed in his idea or form, and straightway, in the twinkling of an eye, the things were opened unto me, and I saw in infinite sight all things were becoming light, both sweet and exceedingly pleasant, and I was wonderfully delighted in seeing it. 5. But after a little while, there was a darkness made in part, coming down obliquely, fearful and hideous, which seemed to me to be changed into a certain moist nature, unspeakably troubled, which yielded a smoke as foam fire, and from which proceeded a voice unutterable, a very mournful, but inarticulate, inasmuch as it seemed to have come from the light. 6. Then from that light a certain holy word joined itself unto nature, and then came the pure and unmixed fire from the moist nature upward on high. It was exceeding light, and sharp, and dynamic as well, and the air, which was also light, followed the spirit, and mourned up the fire, insomuch that it seemed to hang and depend upon it. 7. And the earth and the water stayed by themselves so mingled together, that the earth could not be seen for the water, but they were moved because of the spiritual word that was carried upon them. 8. Then the Pymander to me, Do you understand this vision and what it means? I shall know, I said. Then said he, I am that light, the mind, thy God, who am before that moist nature and appeared out of darkness, and that bright and shining word from the mind is the Son of God. 9. How is that? I asked. Thus he replied, Understand it. That which in you sees and hears the word of the Lord, and the mind, the Father God, differ not one from the other, and the unison of these is life. I said, I thank thee. He said, But first conceive well the light in your mind and know it. 10. When he had said thus, for a long time we looked steadfastly, one upon the other, insomuch that I trembled at his idea or form. 11. But when he nodded to me, I beheld in my mind the light that is innumerable, and the truly indefinable ornament or world, and that the fire is comprehended or contained in, or by a great moist power, and constrained to keep its place and form. 12. These things I understood, seeing the word, or Pymander. And when I was mightily amazed, he said again unto me, Have you seen in your mind that archetypal form, which was before the intermediate and infinite beginning? Thus said Pymander to me. But how, I said, or from what substance are the elements of nature made? He said, of the will and counsel of God, which taking the word and beholding the beautiful world imitated it, and so made this world by the principles and vital seeds or soul-like productions of itself. 13. For the mind being God, male and female, life and light, brought forth by his word another mind or workman, which being God of the fire and the spirit, fashioned and formed 7 other governors, which in their circles contain the tangible world, whose government or disposition is called fate or destiny. I'm understanding this so much more, and I'm really glad I kept going. Hey, Bamboo, welcome. 14. And straightway came forth, or exalted itself from the downward elements of God, the word of God, into the clean and pure workmanship of nature, and was united to the workman mind, for it was consubstantial. And so the downward born elements of nature were left without reason, that they might be the only matter. 15. But the workman, mind, together with the word, containing the circles and spinning them about, turning round as a wheel, his own workmanship, and suffering them to be turned from an infinite being to an indeterminable end. For they always begin where they end. 16. And the circulation or running round of these, as the mind wills, out of the lower and downward born elements, brought forth unreasonable or brutish creatures, for they had no idea, the air flying things, and the water such as swim. 17. And the earth and the water were separated, one from the other, as the mind willed, and the earth brought forth from herself such living creatures as she had, four-footed, and creeping beasts, wild and tame. 18. But the Father of all things, the mind being life and light, brought forth man like unto himself, whom he loved as his proper birth. For he was all beauteous, having the image of his Father. 19. For indeed God was exceedingly enamored of his own form or shape, and delivered unto it all his own creations. But he, seeing and understanding the creation of the workman in the whole, would need as well also himself to fall to work, and so was separated from the Father, being in the sphere of generation or operation. 20. Having all power, he considered the operations or workmanship of the seven, but they loved him, and everyone made him partaker of his own order. 21. And he learning diligently, and understanding their essence, and partaking their nature, resolved to piece and break through the circumference of the circles, and to understand the power of them that sits upon the fire. 22. And having already all power of mortal things, of the living and of the unreasonable creatures of the world, stooped down and peeped through the harmony, and breaking through the strength of the circles, so showed and made manifest the downward born nature, the fair and beautiful shape or form of God. 23. Which when he saw, having in itself the insatiable beauty and all the operations of the seven governors, and the form or shape of God, he smiled for love, as if he had seen the shape or likeness in the water, or the shadow upon the earth of the fairest human form. 24. And seeing in the water a shape like unto himself, in himself he loved it, and would cohabit with it, and immediately upon the resolution ensued the operation, and brought forth the unreasonable image or shape. 25. Nature presently lying hold of what it so much loved, did wholly wrap herself about it, and they were mingled, for they loved one another. 26. And from this cause, man above all things that live upon earth is double, mortal because of his body, and immortal because of the substantial man. For being immortal, and having power of all things, yet he suffers mortal things, and such as are also subject to fate or destiny. 27. And therefore, being above all harmony, he is made and become a servant to harmony. He is hermaphrodite, or or no, he's a hermaphrodite. He is hermaphrodite, or male and female, and watchful. He is governed by and subjected to a father that is both male and female, and watchful. 28. After these things I said, you are my mind, and I am in love with reason. 29. Then said Pymander, this is the mystery that to this day is hidden and kept secret, for nature being mingled with man brought forth a wonder most great. For he having the nature of the harmony of the seven, from him who I told you, the fire and the spirit, nature continued not, but forthwith brought forth 7 men, all hermaphrodites and sublime, or on high, according to the natures of the 7 governors. 30. And after these things, O Pymander, I said, I am now come into a great desire and longing to hear. Do not digress or leave. 31. But he said, keep silence, for I have not yet finished the first speech. 32. I said, behold, I am silent. 33. The generation, therefore, of these 7 was after this manner, the air being feminine, and the water, desirous of copulation, took from the fire its richness, or its ripeness, and from the ethereal spirit. And so nature produced bodies after the species and shape of men. 34. And man was made of life and light, into soul and mind, of life the soul, of light the mind. 35. And so all the members of the sensible world continued unto the period of the end, bearing rule and generating. 36. Hear now the rest of that speech, so you much desire to hear. 37. When that period was fulfilled, the bond of all things was loosed and united by the will of God. For all living creatures, being hermaphrodites, or male and female twain, were loosed and united together with men, or man. And so the males were apart by themselves, and the females likewise. 38. And straightway God said to the holy word, increase, and increasing and multiplying in multitude, all you, my creatures and creations, and let him that is imbued with a mind know himself to be immortal, and that the cause of death is the love of the body, and let him learn the things that are. It's good. All right. 39. When he had thus said, Providence, by fate of harmony, made the mixtures and established the generations, and all things were multiplied according to their kind. And he that knew himself came at length to the possessed of every substantial good. 40. But he that thought the error of vanity loved the body continues wandering in darkness, sensible, suffering the things of death. 41. I said, but why do they that are ignorant sin so much that they should therefore be deprived of immortality? 42. He replied, you seem not to have understood what you have heard. 43. I said, I seem so to you, but I both understand and remember them. 44. He said, I am glad for your sake if thou understood them. 45. I replied, tell me, why are they worthy of death that are in death? I replied, tell me, why are they worthy of death that are in death? 46. He replied, because there goes a sad and dismal darkness before its body, of which darkness is the moist nature, of which moist nature the body consists in the sensible world, from where death is derived. Do you understand? I replied, but why or how does he that understands himself go or pass into God? 48. He replied, That which the word of God said, I say, because the Father of all things consists of life and light, whereof man is made. 49, I replied, you reply very well. 50, he said, God and the Father is light and life, of which man is made. If therefore you learn and believe yourself to be of the life and light, you will again pass into life. 51, I replied, but yet tell me more, O my mind, how I shall go into life. 52, he replied, God says, let man, imbued with the mind, take heed, consider, and know himself well. 53, I asked, have not all men a mind? He said, take heed what you say. For I the mind come unto men that are holy and good, pure and merciful, and that live piously and religiously. And my presence is a help unto them. And forthwith they will know all things, and lovingly they supplicate and propitiate the Father. Propitiate? Propitiate. They supplicate and propitiate the Father, and blessing him, they give him thanks and sing hymns unto him, being ordered and directed by filial affection and natural love. And before they give up their bodies to the death of them, they hate their senses, knowing their works and operations. 55. Rather I, that am the mind itself, will not suffer the operation or works, which happen or belong to the body, to be finished and brought to perfection in them. But being the porter or doorkeeper, I will shut up the entrances of evil and cut off the thoughtful desires of filthy works. 56. But to be foolish and evil and wicked and envious and covetous and murderous and profane, I am far off, giving place to the revenging daemon, which applying unto him the sharpness of life, torment such a mass senses, and arm him the more to all wickedness, that he may obtain the greater punishment. I'm going to try and read that one again. 56. But to the foolish and evil and wicked and envious and covetous and murderous and profane, I am far off, giving place to the revenging demon, which applying unto him the sharpness of fire, torment such a man's senses, and arm him the more to all wickedness, that he may obtain the greater punishment. 57. And such a man never ceases, having unfulfilled desires and unsatisfied. Well, I think we're going to have to look this word up. Concupiscence? Concupiscence. I have to look it up. I have no idea. Let's see. All right. How do you do this? Where am I anyways? Oh, dang, where is that word? Okay, yeah, 57. Concupiscence. Concupiscence? I don't know. Okay, let's see here. Definition. Concupiscence. Where is it? Concupiscence. A strong sexual desire or lust. Okay. Dang, it's a hard word to pronounce. Concupiscence. Concupiscence. All right. I hope I'm saying it right. Concupiscence. Okay. Back to the stream. All right. So 57. And such a man never ceases having unfulfilled desires and unsatisfied concupiscence, and always fighting in darkness. For the daemon always afflicts and torments him continually, and increases the fire upon him more and more. 58. I asked, you have, O mind, most excellently taught me all things, as I desired, but tell me, moreover, after the return is made, what then? 59. He replied, first of all, in the resolution of the material body, the body itself is given up to alteration, and the form which it had becomes invisible. The form which it had becomes invisible. And the idle manners are permitted and left to the daemon. I wonder if it is supposed to be demon, but it's Daemon, the daemon. And the senses of the body return into their origins, being parts, and again made up into operations. 60. And anger and concupiscence go into the brutish or unreasonable nature, and the rest strive upward by harmony. Concupiscence. 61. And to the first zone, it gives the power it had of increasing and diminishing. 62. To the second, the machinations or plotting of evils, and one effectual deceit or craft. 63. To the third, the idle deceit of concupiscence. Concupiscence. Oh, like concubine, maybe. Concupiscence. All right, 64. To the fourth, the desire of rule and insatiable ambition. 65. To the fifth, profane pride and the headlong rashness of confidence. 66. To the sixth, evil and ineffectual gluttony. 67. To the seventh zone, subtle falsehood, always lying in wait. 68. And then being made naked of all the operations of harmony, it comes to the eighth nature, living its proper power, and signs praises to the Father with the things that are, and all they that are present rejoice, and congratulate the coming of it. And being made like to them with whom it converses, it hears also the powers that are above the eighth nature, singing praise to God in a certain voice that is strange to them. 69. And then in order, they return unto the Father, and themselves deliver themselves to the powers, and becoming powers, they are part of God. They are part of God. 70. This is the good, and to them that know, to be desired. 71. Furthermore, why do you say, what rests, but what understanding all men now become a guide and leader to them that are worthy? Get out of here. That are worthy, that the kind of humanity or mankind may be saved by God. So why do you say that what rests, but what understanding all men thou become a guide and leader to them that are worthy, that the kind of humanity or mankind may be saved by God? 72. When Pymander had thus said this to me, he was mingling among the powers. 73. But I, giving thanks and blessing the Father for all things, rose up, being enabled by him, and taught the nature of the whole. And having seen the greatest sight or spectacle. 74. And I began to preach unto men the beauty and fairness of piety and knowledge. 75. O people, men, born and made of the earth, which has given yourself over to drunkenness and sleep, and to the ignorance of God, be sober and cease your surfeit, by which you are allured and visited by brutish and unreasonable sleep. Surfeit. I don't know what it means. We're going to look it up, okay? Concupiscence. Surfeit. 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 It means an excessive amount of something. Surfeit. Cool. I totally don't feel like reading this book live. Because I'm going to be... Where am I here? Okay. Surfeit. O people, men, born and made of the earth, which has given yourself over to drunkenness and sleep, and to be ignorance, and to the ignorance of God, be sober and cease your surfeit, by which you are allured and visited by brutish and unreasonable sleep. 76. And they had heard me come willingly, and with one accord, and then I said further, 77, why, O men of the offspring of earth, why have you delivered yourself over unto death, having power to partake of immortality? Repent and change your minds, you that have together walked in error and have been darkened in ignorance. 78. Depart from that dark light, be partakers of immortality, and forsake corruption. 79. And some of them that heard me, mocking and scorning, went away, and delivered themselves up to be way of death. Delivered themselves up to the way of death. 80. But others, casting themselves down before my feet, besought me that they might be taught, and I, causing them to rise up, became a guide of mankind, teaching them the reasons how, and by what means they may be saved. And I sowed in them the words of wisdom, and nourished them with ambrosia of immortality. 81. And then it was evening, and the brightness of the same began wholly to go down. I commanded them to go down. I commanded them to give thanks to God. And when they had finished their thanksgiving, everyone turned to his own lodging. I don't know. Commanded, right? Okay. 82. But I wrote in myself the bounty and benevolence of Pymander, and being filled with what I most desired, I was exceedingly glad. 83. For the sleep of the body was the sober watchfulness of the mind, and the shutting of my eyes, the true sight, and my silence, great with child and full of good, and the pronouncing of my words, the blossoms and fruits of good things. 84. And thus it came to pass, which I received from my mind, that is Pymander, the Lord of the Word, whereby I became inspired by God with the truth. 85. For which cause, with my soul and whole strength, I gave praise and blessing unto God the Father. 86. Holy is God, the Father of all things. 87. Holy is God, whose will is performed and accomplished by his own powers. 88. Holy is God, that determines to be known and is known by his own. 89. Holy art thou, that by your word has established all things. 90. Holy art thou, of whom all nature is the image. 91. Holy art thou, whom nature did not form. 92. Holy art thou, that are stronger than all power. 93. Holy art thou, that are stronger than all excellency. 94. Holy art thou, that are better than all praise. 95. Accept these reasonable sacrifices from a pure soul and a heart that stretched out to you. 96. O unspeakable, unutterable, to be praised with silence. 97. I beseech you that I may never err from the knowledge of you, Lord. Look mercifully upon me, and enable me, and enlighten with this grace those that are in ignorance, the brothers of my kind, but your sons. 98. Therefore I believe in you, and bear witness, and go into the light and life. 99. Blessed art thou, O Father, thy man would be sacrificed with you, as you have given him all power. All right. So, all right. Okay. Dare I read more? I mean, I am interested, right? It's just like, okay. This one's only 2 pages. Let's see how it goes. 3, the Holy Sermon. This time I'm going to try reading it without the numbers, and it only has 11. The glory of all things, God, and that which is divine, and the divine nature, the beginning of all things that are. God and the mind, and nature, and matter, and movement, and necessity, and the end and change. For there was, in the chaos and infinite darkness, in the abyss or bottomless depth, and water, and a subtle, in spirit, intelligible in power, and a subtle in spirit, intelligible in power, that there went out the holy light, and the elements were coagulated from the sand out of the moist substance. And all the gods distinguished the nature full of seeds. And when all things were determined and unraveled, the light things were divided on high, and the heavy things were founded upon the moist sand, all things being terminated or divided by fire, and being sustained or hung up by the Spirit. They were so carried, and the heaven was seen in 7 circles. And the gods were seen in their ideas of the stars, with all their signs, and the stars were numbered with the gods in them. And the sphere was all bordered with air, carried about in a circular motion by the Spirit of God. Ooh. And every god, by his internal power, did that which was commanded him. And there were made 4-footed things, and creeping things, and such as live in the water, and such as fly, and every fruitful seed, and grass, and the flowers of all plants, all which had sowed themselves the seeds of regeneration, as also the generations of men to the knowledge of the divine works, and a lively or working testimony of nature, and a multitude of men, and the domination of all things under heaven, and the knowledge of good things, and to be increased in increasing, and multiplied in multitude. And every soul is flesh, by the wonderful working of the gods in their circles, to the beholding of heaven, the gods' divine work, and the operations of nature, and for signs of good things, and the knowledge of the divine power, and to find out every cunning working of good things. So it begins to live in them, and to be wise according to the operation of the course of the circular gods, and to be resolved into that which shall be great monuments, and the memory of the cunning works done upon earth, leaving them to be read by the darkness of times. And every generation of living flesh, of fruit, seed, and all handicrafts, though they are lost, must of necessity be renewed by the renovation of the gods, and of the nature of a circle, moving in manner, for it is the divine thing that every worldly temperance should be renewed by nature. For in that which is divine is nature also established. Oh, that was beautiful. The Holy Sermon. Wow. That is cool. Let's see how long this next one is. The key. I'm going to do it. I want to know. The key. Yesterday's speech. Oh, crap. O. Aesculapius. Aesculapius? Sounds like I'm saying tilapia. Aesculapius. I think someone's name. O Aesculapius, I dedicated to you. This day it is fit to dedicate to Tet or Tot, because it is an epitome, I almost said epitome, because it is an epitome of those general speeches which were spoken to him. God, therefore, and the Father, and the good, O Tot, have the same nature, or rather also the same act of operation. For there is one name or appellation of nature or increase, which concerns things changeable, and another about things unchangeable, and about things immovable, that is to say, things divine and mundane. Every one of that which himself will have so to be, but actions or operation of another thing or elsewhere, as we have taught in other things divine and mundane, which must here also be understood. For the operation or act is his will, and his essence to will all things to be. For what is God, and the Father, and the good, but the being of all things that yet are not, and the existence itself of things, of those things that are? This is God, this is the Father, this is the good, by which no other thing is present or approaches. For the world and the Son, which is also a Father by participation, is not for all that equally the cause of good, and of life to living creatures. And if this be so, he is altogether constrained by the will of the good, without which it is not possible either to be, nor to be begotten or made. But the Father is the cause of his children, who hath a will both to sow and nourish that which is good by the Son. For good is always active or busy in making, and this cannot be in any other but in him that takes nothing, and yet wills all things to be. For I will not say, O Tot, making them, for he that makes is defective in much time, in which sometimes he makes not, as also of quality and quantity. For sometimes he makes those things that have quantity and quality, and sometimes the contrary. But God is the Father and the good, in being all things, for he both will be this and is this, and yet all this for himself in him that can see it. For all things else are for this. It is the property of good to be known. This is the good, O Tot. He said, You have filled us, O Father, with a sight both good and fair, and the eye of my mind is almost become more holy by the sight. I replied, I wonder not of it, for the sight of good is not like the beam of the sun, which, being of a fiery shining brightness, makes the eye blind, by its excessive light that gazes upon it. Rather the contrary, for it enlightens, and so much increases the light of the eye, as any man is able to receive an influence of this intelligible clarity. For it is more swift and sharp to pierce, and innocent or harmless withal, and full of immortality. And they are capable and can draw any store of this spectacle and sight, do many times fall asleep from the body into the most fair and beauteous vision. These things, Celius and Saturn, are progenitors obtained unto. 15. He said, I would we also, O Father, could do so. I would we also, O Father, could do so. I would we also, O Father, could do so. I don't understand. I would we also. I think he's saying that he would if he could. I replied, I wish we could, O son, but for the present we are less intent to the vision, and cannot yet open the eyes of our mind to behold the incorruptible and incomprehensible beauty of that good. But then we shall see it, when we have nothing at all to say of it. Oh, gosh. Awesome. For the knowledge of it is a divine silence, and the rest of all the senses. For neither can be that understand anything else, nor he that sees that see anything else, nor hear anything, any other thing, nor even move the body. For shining steadfastly upon and round the whole mind, it enlightens all the soul, and loosing it from the bodily senses and motions, it draws it from the body and changes it wholly into the essence of God. For it is possible for the soul, O son, to be defied while yet it lodges in the body of man, if it contemplates the beauty of the good. He asked, how do you mean defying, Father? I replied, there are differences, O son, of every soul. He said, but how do you again divide the changes? I replied, have you not heard in the general speeches that from one soul of the universe are all those souls which in the world are tossed up and down, as it were, and severely divided? Of these souls there are many changes, some into a more fortunate estate, and some quite the contrary. For they which are of creeping things are changed into those of watery things, and those of things living in the water to those of things living upon the land, and airy ones are changed into men, and human souls that lay hold of immortality are changed into demons. And so they go on into the sphere or region of the fixed gods. For there are two choirs or companies of gods, one of them that wander, and another of them that are fixed. And so this is the perfect glory of the soul. But the soul entering into the body of a man, if it continues to do evil, shall neither taste of immortality, nor is partaker of the good. But being drawn back the same way, it returns into degeneration, and this is the condemnation of an evil soul. And the wickedness of a soul is ignorance, for the soul that knows nothing of the things that are, neither the nature of them, nor that which is good, but is blinded, rushes and dashes against the bodily passions, and unhappily as it is, and not knowing itself, it serves strange bodies and evil ones, carrying the body as a burden, and not ruling it, but being ruled by it. And this is the mischief of the soul. On the contrary, the virtue of the soul is knowledge. For he that knows is both good and religious, and already divine. He asked, "But who is such a man, O Father?" I replied, "He that neither speaks nor hears many things, for he, O son, that hears two speeches or hearings fights in the shadow." Is he saying that ignorance is bliss? I'm not sure. I think he was sort of saying the opposite. For God and the Father and good is neither spoken nor heard. This being so, and all things that are the senses, because they cannot be without them. But knowledge differs much from sense, for sense is of things that surmount it, but knowledge is the end of sense. Knowledge is the gift of God, for all knowledge is intangible, but uses the mind as an instrument, as the mind uses the body. Therefore, both intelligible and material things go, both of them, into bodies. All physical things must exist in this contrary state of dichotomy, and it is impossible it should be otherwise. He asked, "Who, therefore, is this material God?" I replied, "The fair and beautiful world, and yet it is not good, for it is material and easily corrupted. Nay, it is the first of all corrupted things, and the second of the things that are, and needy or wanting for something else. And it was once made, and is always, and is ever in generation, and made, and continually generates physical things. For it is changeable, and every material motion is generation. But the intellectual stability moves the material motion after this manner. Because the world is a sphere that is a head, and above the head there is nothing material. As beneath the feet there is nothing intellectual. The whole universe is material. The mind is the head, and it is moved spherically, that is, like a head. Whatever, therefore, is joined or united to the membrane or film of the head, where the soul is immortal, and as in the soul of a made body, has its soul full of the body. But those that are further from that membrane have the body full of soul. The whole is a living white. Okay, well, we got to look that up. That's the second time the word came, and I don't know what it means. WIGHT. White. Archaic dialect. A person of a specified kind, especially one regarded as unfortunate. Okay. Oh, and do you say wit? Wit. Like, that's how you pronounce it. Wit, not white. Okay, wit. All right. An unfortunate person. Archaic. Literary, a spirit, ghost, or other supernatural being. Ooh. Interesting. Okay. So, the whole is a living wit, and therefore consists of both the material and intellectual. And the world is the first, and man is the second living thing after the world. But the first of things that are mortal, and therefore has whatsoever benefit of the soul all the others have. And yet for all this, he is not only good, He is not only not good, but flatly evil, as being mortal. For the world is not good, and at is and for the world is not good, as it is corruptible, nor evil, as it is immortal. But man is evil, both as he is corruptible, and as he is mortal. But if the soul of man is carried on this manner, the mind is the reason, reason in the soul, soul in the spirit, spirit in the body. The spirit having diffused and going through the veins, the arteries, and blood, both moves the living creature, and after a certain manner causes it to live. Wherefore, some also have thought the soul to be blood, being deceived in nature, not knowing that first the spirit must return into the soul, and then the blood is congealed, and the veins and arteries emptied, and then the living thing dies, and this is the death of the body. All things depend of one beginning, and the beginning depends of that which is undivided and alone. And the beginning is moved, that it may again be a beginning. But that which is one stands and abides, and is not moved. There are therefore these three: God the Father, and the good, the world, and man. God has the world, and the world has man, and the world is the Son of God, and the man, as it were, the offspring of the world. For God is not ignorant of man, but knows him perfectly, and will be known by him. This only is healthful to man, the knowledge of God. This is the return of Olympus. By this only the soul is made good, and not sometimes good, and sometimes evil, but of necessity good. He said, "What do you mean, O Father?" I replied, "Consider, O Son, the soul of a child, when as yet it has received no dissolution of its body, which is not yet grown, but is very small. How then, if it looks upon itself, it sees itself beautiful, as not having been as yet spotted with the passions of the body, but as it were, depending yet upon the soul of the world. But when the body is grown and distracts the soul, it engenders forgetfulness, and partakes no more of the fair and the good, and forgetfulness is evilness. The like also happens to them that go out of the body, for when the soul runs back into itself, the spirit is contracted into the blood, and the soul into the spirit. But the mind, being made pure and free from these vestiges, and being divine by nature, taking a fiery blood, goes abroad in every place, leaving the soul to judgment and to the punishment it thus deserves. He asked, "Why do you say so, O Father, that the mind is separated from the soul, and the soul from the spirit, when even now you said that the soul was the clothing or apparel of the mind, and the body of the soul?" I replied, O Son, he that hears must understand, and conspire in thought with him that speaks. Yes, he must have his hearing swifter and sharper than the voice of the speaker. The disposition of these vestiges, I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever said it before. Or covers is done in an earthly body, for it is impossible that the mind should establish or rest itself naked and of itself in an earthly body. Neither is the earthly body able to bear such immortality, and therefore that it might suffer so great virtue, the mind compacted, as it were, and took to itself the passible body of the soul as a covering or clothing. And the soul, being also in some sort divine, uses the spirit as her minister or servant, and the spirit governs the living things. When therefore the mind is separated and departs from the earthly body, presently it puts on its fiery coat, which it could not do before, having to dwell in an earthly body. For the earth cannot suffer fire, for it is all burned of a small spark. Therefore is the water poured round about the earth as a wall or defense to withstand the flame of fire. But the mind being the most sharp or swift of all the divine cognition, and more swift than all the elements, has the fire for its body. For the mind, which is the workman of all, uses the fire as his instrument in his workmanship. And he that is the workman of all uses it, the making of all things, as it is used by man to the making of earthly things only. For the mind that is upon earth, void or naked of fire, cannot do the business of man, nor that which is otherwise the affairs of God. But the soul of man, and yet not everyone, but that which is pious and religious, is angelic and divine. And such a soul, after it is departed from the body, having striven the strife of piety, becomes either mind or God. And the strife of piety is to know God, and to injure no man. Okay, so and the strife and piety is to know God and to injure no man, and this way it becomes mind. But the impious soul abides in its own offenses, punishes by itself, and seeking an earthly and physical body to enter into. For no other body is capable of a mundane soul. Neither is it lawful for a man's soul to fall into the body of an unreasonable living thing. For it is the decree of God to preserve a human soul from the great a reproach. Oh, wait. Whoa. For it is the decree of God to preserve a human soul from so great a reproach. He asked, how then is the soul of man punished, O Father? And what is its greatest torment? I replied, impiety, O my son. For what fire has so great a flame as it? Or what biting beast does so tear the body as it does the soul? Or do you not see how many evils the wicked soul suffers, roaring and crying out, I am burned, I am consumed, I know not what to say or do. I am devoured, unhappy. I am devoured, unhappy wretch of the evils that surround and lay hold upon me. Miserable that I am, I neither hear nor see anything. These are the voices of a punished and tormented soul, and not as many as you, O son, think that the soul going out of the body grows brutish or enters into a beast, which is a very great error, for the soul is rather punished after this manner. For the mind, when it is ordered or appointed to get a fiery body for the services of God, coming down into the wicked soul, torments it with the whips of its sins, with which the wicked soul, being scourged, turns itself to murders and lies and blasphemies and various violence and other things by which men are injured. But into a pious soul, the mind entering leads it into the light of knowledge. And such a soul is never satisfied with singing praise to God and speaking well of all men. and both in words and deeds always doing good, in imitation of the Father. Therefore, O Son, we must give thanks and pray that we may obtain a good mind. The soul, therefore, may be altered or changed into the better, but into the worse it is impossible. But there is a communion of souls, and those of gods communicate with those men, and those of men with those beasts. And the better always take of the worse, gods of men, men of brute beasts, but God of all. For he is the best of all, and all things are less than he. Therefore is the world subject unto God, man unto the world, and unreasonable things to man. But God is above all and about all, and the beams of God are operations, and the beams of the world are natures, and the beams of man are arts and sciences. And operations do act by the world, and upon man by the natural beams of the world, but nature's work by the elements, and man by arts and sciences. And this is the government of the whole, depending upon the nature of the one, and piercing or coming down by the one mind, than which nothing is more divine and more efficacious or operative, and nothing more uniting. The communion of God and men, of gods and men, and of men and gods. My eyes are getting fuzzy. Shit, though. That one was, efficacious. 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 More efficacious. I think I've seen that word before. Efficacious or operative. We're looking it up. And I'm going to finish off with this chapter, and then I'm going to say no more. Oh, man, I didn't even make it halfway. It's a lot of big ideas. Oh, hey, Little Wing. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. All right. Efficacy. Yeah, efficacy. Is that where that comes from? Let's find out. Efficacious. Cool. Efficacious. It means successful in producing a desired or intended result. Effective, right? See, I did understand what it means. I just I had real trouble with it, though. Efficacious. Cool. Efficacious. I like that word. So let's see if I can't read this this one again. Let me get back to this. And this is the government of the whole, depending upon the nature of the one, and piercing or coming down by one mind, than which nothing is more divine and more efficacious or operative, and nothing more uniting. The communion of gods to men, and of men to gods. This is a good mind, blessed soul that is fullest of it, and unhappy soul that is empty of it. He asked, and how, Father? I replied, know, O Son, that every soul has the good mind, for of that it is we now speak. And not of that minister of whom we said before that he was sent from the judgment. sorry. Sometimes I don't know. I think it's just maybe just like the way that they like their dialect or something at the time. Like sometimes I don't understand what they're saying because of the way the words are. For of that it is we now speak. For of that it is we now speak. For okay, so there I think he's just drawing attention to that. That is what we're talking about now. Even though there's like seemingly extra words or something. And not of that minister of whom we said before that he was sent from the judgment. For the soul without the mind can neither say nor do anything. For many times the mind flies away from the soul, and in that hour the soul neither sees nor hears, but is like the unreasonable thing. So great is the power of the mind. But neither causes it to be an idle or lazy soul, but leaves such a soul fastened to the body, and by it is pressed down. And such a soul, O son, has no mind. Wherefore neither must such a one be called a man. Such a soul, O son, has no mind. Wherefore neither must such a one be called a man. For man is a divine living thing, and it is not to be compared to any brute beast that lives upon earth, but to them that are above in heaven, that are called gods. Rather, if we shall be bold to speak the truth, he that is a man indeed is above them, or at least they are equal in power, one to the other. For none of the things in heaven will come down upon earth and leave the limits of heaven, but a man ascends up to heaven and measures it, and he knows what things are on high and what is below, and learns all other things exactly. And that which is the greatest of all, he leaves not the earth, and yet is above. So great is the greatness of his nature. Wherefore we must be bold to say that an earthly man is a mortal god, and that the heavenly God is an immortal man. Therefore, by these two are all things governed, the world and man, but they and all things else of that which is singular. Therefore, by these two are all things governed, and the world. Therefore, by these two are all things governed, the world and man, but they and all things else of that which is singular. Interesting. If this was 2 pages, I might read it, but oh wow, it's so short, right? I'm glad that these are short chapters, but like I'm gonna have to. I really do just need to read this alone. It's so much information, and I'm having all kinds of feelings about it, and not stopping and really piecing and like I normally would, right? So I don't even know if I'm going to come back and read the rest of this thing, but I might. But I am going to call it for the day. So thanks for hanging out with me, y'alls. That was a little rough, but dang. Sometimes when I listen back to these, I get even more from it than while I'm reading it. It's kind of like a dual thing, like the way they mesh together. So dang, right? Yeah, this stuff had lots of interesting stuff. I had lots of interesting feelings about those things that I just read. Questions, conflicting emotions, agreeing emotions. Interesting. The Divine Pymander. Hermes Trismegistus. All right, you guys. Yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Yeah, come back and read the rest of it. Okay, because you said that, dude, I will. Why not, right? It's so tiny, but it looks like I might have to do 2 more sittings. It's been an hour and 40 minutes. Right? Okay, yeah. I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Yeah, tomorrow's called Sunday. One more work day at the restaurant. And yeah, then more Alley Cat Arcana. So that's awesome, right? Ooh, okay. Mwah. I will see you so soon. Laters. Thank you.